My name's Tessa, I'm 26, and the first toast at my own engagement party was my dad saying, "No man would want her, not if he knew her." He didn't even try to lower his voice. Everyone heard it. My fiancé's mom froze with her wine glass halfway to her lips. My best friend Dana stared hard at the table like the wood grains suddenly needed studying. And my fiancé Eric did that thing where he blinked a lot, like maybe if he blinked enough the words would rewind. I just sat there with my ring catching the light, hands folded in my lap, like I was watching someone else's life. Dad chuckled after he said it, like it was a joke you were supposed to clap for. Then he lifted his glass again and added, "But I guess some guys don't mind leftovers." A couple people let out these tiny nervous laughs that sounded like air leaking from a tire. Most people didn't make a sound at all. I looked at the centerpieces I picked out, white roses, simple, clean. And I nodded once like I was accepting a compliment. I didn't give him the satisfaction of a reaction. That's the part nobody understood about me. When I get quiet, it's not because I'm weak, it's because I'm counting. I work a normal job. I'm a project coordinator for a mid-sized construction company outside Cleveland, the kind of place with too much fluorescent lighting and men who still print emails. I pay my bills. I keep my car clean. I meal prep on Sundays because it makes the week easier. I'm not dramatic. I'm the reliable one. Growing up, I was the kid who didn't ask for much. My mum died when I was 14, and after that, my dad turned into this hard, unpredictable version of himself. He'd be charming in public, and then at home he'd make little comments that landed like pebbles at first, then rocks. "You're getting thick. You're too sensitive. Don't embarrass me." I learned early that arguing with him was like trying to hold smoke. Eric was the first person who made me feel like I wasn't constantly auditioning for basic respect. We met at a friend's game night. He laughed easy, talked to everyone, and when I spoke he looked directly at me like my words mattered. 2 years later, when he proposed, it wasn't some big staged thing. He did it in our kitchen while I was in socks with my hair in a messy knot. He said he wanted boring Tuesdays with me forever. That sounded perfect. So yeah, we planned an engagement party at this nicer Italian place because Eric's family is big on tradition. His parents offered to pay for half. My dad insisted on giving a toast. I knew that was risky, but I told myself, it's public, he'll behave. He always behaves when there are witnesses. Except this time, he didn't. When Dad finished his little speech, he smiled at Eric like they were on the same team. "You're a brave man," he said, loud enough for the whole table again. Eric's jaw tightened. He put a hand on my knee under the table, like he was asking if I wanted to leave. I kept my face neutral, reached for my water, took one sip, and set it down carefully. The room felt too warm. Somewhere behind me, silverware clinked. A server walked by and avoided looking at us. Dad sat back like he'd done something funny and impressive. Eric's dad, Frank, cleared his throat and tried to fix it. "Well," Frank said, forcing a laugh, "we're just happy to have everyone here." But it didn't fix it. Nothing fixes words like that once they're out. Dana leaned in close to my ear and whispered, "Do you want me to say something?" I shook my head slightly, not because I didn't want someone to defend me, because I could already feel the trap. If I reacted, Dad would turn it into a scene about how I can't take a joke, how I'm unstable, how he's the victim. He'd love that. He'd feed on it. So I smiled politely and turned toward my Aunt Marlene, who was sitting 2 seats down and pretending to scroll on her phone. "Did you try the stuffed mushrooms?" I asked her like nothing happened. My voice came out steady. Marlene looked up fast, eyes wide, then nodded too hard. Yeah, they're good," she said. She wouldn't meet my eyes after that. I watched everyone do the same thing, the way people do when they don't want to get involved. They suddenly needed to sip drinks and adjust napkins and check messages. Eric's sister Paige looked like she might cry from secondhand embarrassment, but she stayed quiet. Dad kept talking, telling a story about me at 16 getting grounded, twisting it into something gross, like I'd been out there running around. He used that exact phrase. I could hear Eric breathe in like he was about to stand up, and I gently put my hand on his wrist under the table. Not squeezing, just a signal. Not yet. I let Dad have his moment. I let him believe he'd won. Because while he was performing, I noticed something. Dad had a manila envelope tucked under his chair, half hidden, like he brought props. Dad doesn't bring props unless he's planning something. My eyes stayed on my plate, but my brain filed it away. Then my phone buzzed in my purse. I didn't check it right away. I waited until the laughter died down and the server came to clear plates. When I finally slid my phone out, the screen showed a text from an unknown number. Just one line. Don't let him do it. Check the envelope. No name, no explanation. My thumb hovered over the screen. I didn't look around. I didn't ask anyone. I simply locked my phone again and slid it back into my purse. I leaned toward Eric and said quietly, "After dessert, we're leaving." He looked at me like he wanted to argue, like he wanted to end it right then, but he nodded. Across the table, Dad was reaching down, patting the envelope like it was a pet. He smiled to himself. I stared at the flicker of candlelight against the wine bottles on the wall and made a decision I didn't share with anyone. If Dad brought something tonight to finish me off in front of Eric's family, then tonight was also the night I stopped being careful. And as the server placed dessert menus down, Dad cleared his throat again, like he was gearing up for round 2, and I realized whatever was inside that envelope was about to change my life or his. If you're still with me, hit like and stick around, because what I found under that chair wasn't just petty drama. It was proof. And the next thing Dad did made it clear he never thought I'd fight back. Dad lifted his glass again, and before he could speak, I stood up with my dessert menu still in my hand like I'd just remembered something polite. "Bathroom," I said, calm. Nobody stopped me. Eric started to rise, but I gave him the smallest head shake. I walked away at a normal pace, not rushing, not storming, just moving. The hallway to the restrooms was quiet, except for the hum of the ice machine near the bar. I didn't go into the bathroom. I turned back toward our table from a distance where I could still see Dad's chair. The manila envelope was still tucked under it, corner poking out. A server came by with a tray, and I stepped into a little alcove so I wouldn't be in the way. When she passed, I walked straight up, bent like I was picking up my purse that had fallen, and slid the envelope out with 2 fingers. It was heavier than paper should be. I held it against my side and kept walking like nothing happened. In the restroom stall, I opened it. Inside were printed screenshots, copies of emails, and a typed letter with my name at the top. It wasn't from a lawyer, but it was written like one. It accused me of hiding debt, stealing money from Dad, and having a history of infidelity. The screenshots were supposed to be proof. There were bank transactions I'd never seen with my name typed next to them. There were messages that looked like texts between me and some guy saved as Jay. And there was a grainy photo of a brunette in a bar that wasn't me at all, but from far away in bad lighting. I could see how someone could pretend it was. At the bottom of the letter was a line that made my stomach go cold in a very quiet way. "I recommend you postpone the wedding until you can confirm your fiancé's character." He was planning to hand this to Eric, tonight, in front of everyone. Like a public warning. I stood there for a second, not moving, just letting my eyes go back over the pages. Dad had spent time on this. He built a whole little package, like a folder you bring to court. The weird part was how confident it looked, like he expected it to work. I took out my phone and snapped photos of every page, slow and steady, making sure the timestamps and headers were visible. Then I put everything back exactly how it was, slid the envelope into my tote bag, washed my hands, and looked in the mirror. My face looked the same, maybe a little pale. My lipstick was still fine. I fixed one strand of hair and walked out. Back at the table, Dad was mid-story again, holding court. He saw me sit down and his eyes flicked to the floor near his chair. Just a quick glance. Then back to me. Then to Eric. I watched him do the math and realized the envelope wasn't where he left it. His smile got tighter. "Everything okay?" Eric whispered. "Yep," I said. "I'm starving." I opened the dessert menu. It was ridiculous, sitting there reading about tiramisu like my dad wasn't trying to light my life on fire. Dad leaned over toward Eric, lowering his voice like he was being respectful, but still loud enough for the table to hear pieces. "Listen, son," he said. "I just want you to know what you're getting into." Eric's mom, Melinda, finally spoke up. "Gary," she said, sharp, "not tonight." Dad put a hand up. "I'm just being honest," he said. "No one else will be." Then he looked straight at me and smiled like I was a child who couldn't stop him. Tessa's always had a habit of forgetting to mention important things. I nodded, still reading the menu. "Can we get the cannoli?" I asked the server when she walked up. The server looked relieved to have something normal to do. "Of course," she said. Eric kept staring at me like he was trying to figure out how I was sitting so still. Under the table, his hand found mine and I let him hold it. Dad waited until the server left, then reached down and felt under his chair. His fingers hit nothing. The color in his face shifted. Not red, not white, just this stiff, contained panic. "Hold on," he muttered, patting around like he'd dropped his wallet. My Aunt Marlene glanced down, then away again. Dana's eyes darted to me, questioning. I didn't react. Dad tried to play it off. "Damn chair," he said with a forced laugh. "Feels like I lost something." Frank leaned in. "You okay?" Dad chuckled again, too high. Yeah, just," he looked at my tote bag on the floor by my feet. Just one quick look, like his eyes couldn't help it. I tilted my bag slightly with my shoe, tucking it closer to me. His jaw worked like he was chewing on something. That was my first little taste of control. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was real. The cannoli came. People pretended to relax, but the vibe was broken. Dad kept scanning faces, trying to decide if he should push forward without his evidence. Eric finally said, steady and clear, "Gary, you've said enough." Dad laughed like Eric was joking. "I'm protecting you," he said. Eric didn't raise his voice. "From what? A toast?" That landed. A couple of people snorted, then stopped themselves. Dad's eyes narrowed. "You don't know her like I do," he said. Eric squeezed my hand. "I know her," Eric said. "I trust her." Dad looked around like he expected backup. None came. That silence wasn't support for me exactly. It was discomfort, but I'd take it. Dad leaned back, lips pressed together, and I could tell he was switching tactics, turning over options in his head. He wanted to hurt me. That was the point. It was never really about Eric. It was about showing me I couldn't escape him. My phone buzzed again in my purse. I didn't check it right away. I waited until Dad stood up and walked toward the bar, probably to regroup. Then I pulled my phone out under the table. Another text from the unknown number. "He's been telling people you stole from him. He filed something last week. Check county records." My throat went tight, not with tears, just with focus. Filed something. Like what? A police report? A lawsuit? I clicked the number to call, but it went straight to voicemail. No name. I looked up and saw Paige watching me. She quickly looked away, but her face was tense. Paige had always been polite to me, but not close. Still, she looked like someone sitting on a secret. When Dad came back, he acted like nothing happened, but he kept drinking faster. Eric leaned close and murmured, "We can leave right now." I nodded. "After we say goodbye," I said. I stood up, tapped my fork on my plate lightly, and smiled at the table. "Thank you for coming," I said. "We're heading out. Early day tomorrow." Linda stood too, hugging me a little too tight. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Frank patted Eric's shoulder. Dana grabbed my arm and mouthed, "Call me." Dad stayed seated, watching like a predator who'd lost his favorite angle. "Running off," he said. "Typical." I looked at him steady. "Good night, Dad." No heat in it. Just final. In the parking lot, the cold air hit my face and cleared the restaurant smell out of my head. Eric unlocked the car, but he didn't get in right away. He turned to me. "Tell me what's going on," he said, quiet. I opened my tote, pulled out the envelope, and handed it to him. He flipped through the pages, and I watched his expression change from confusion to disbelief to something hard. He looked up at me. "This is fake," he said. "I know," I said. He exhaled through his nose like he was trying not to explode. "I'm calling him," Eric said, already reaching for his phone. I gently touched his wrist. "Not yet," I said. "I want to know how far he went." Eric stared at me like he was seeing a new side of me. "Okay," he said slowly. "What do you need?" That question changed everything. I slid into the passenger seat and pulled up the county clerk website on my phone. The way you do when you don't want to guess anymore. If Dad filed something, it would be there. And as the page loaded, I realized whoever was texting me wasn't trying to scare me. They were trying to help. I just had to figure out who. And when the search results popped up with my name, my stomach dropped. Because there it was, a case number, filed 4 days ago, and the plaintiff was my own father. I tapped the case number with my thumb, and the screen opened just enough to show the title before it asked for a small document fee. Petition for financial restitution and fraud, it read. Plaintiff, Gary Harmon. Defendant, Tessa Harmon. I didn't say a word. I just handed my phone to Eric so he could see it with his own eyes. He stared, then looked up at me like he was trying to find the punchline. "Your dad sued you?" he said. "Looks like it," I said. My voice came out flat, almost bored, which surprised even me. Eric sat back in the driver's seat and blew out a slow breath. "Okay," he said. "Okay, we're not guessing anymore." He pulled out his card and paid for the document right there from the parking lot, lit by the orange glow of a street lamp. The PDF loaded, and he started scrolling. Dad claimed I borrowed $12,000 over 2 years and refused to pay it back. He attached proof that looked like handwritten IOUs with my signature. My signature was close but wrong in the small ways only I would notice. The loop on the T was too tight. The tail on the A didn't dip the way I do. Eric scrolled further. There was also a request for a temporary order, basically asking the court to freeze certain shared accounts and prevent me from disposing of assets. Assets, Eric repeated, like the word tasted bad. What assets does he think you have? I stared ahead through the windshield at the restaurant doors opening and closing. He thinks everything I have is his, I said. Eric kept scrolling, jaw clenched. This is harassment, he said. He's trying to ruin you before you're even married. I nodded once. No tears, no shaking, just that internal click of, got it. Then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He's doing it because of the house. Don't confront him. Talk to Marlene. I read it twice. Because of the house? Eric asked when he saw my face. My mom's house, I said, and the words felt like taking something out of a locked drawer. When my mom died, she left a small house on the west side to me. Not to my dad. To me. It wasn't fancy. But it was paid off. Dad lived there anyway, acting like it was his because I was a kid and I didn't know how to fight him. Over the years, he'd kept me out of the paperwork, kept the mail, handled all that boring stuff. Every time I brought it up, he'd shut it down. You'll get it when I'm gone, he'd say, like he was doing me a favor. Eric turned toward me. Tessa, he said carefully, are you on that deed? I don't know, I said. I should be. Eric didn't yell, he didn't rant. He nodded, like a guy who just found the real problem in a messy project. Tomorrow, he said, we get answers. The next morning, we met Dana for coffee because she works in an office that does notary and document processing, and she's the kind of friend who hears county records and starts making lists. I slid into the booth, set my phone on the table, and showed her the case. Dana's eyebrows climbed. He actually filed, she said. He's out of his mind. I think he's scared, I said. Of what? Dana asked. I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I didn't know yet, but my gut kept circling the same thing. The house. We drove to my Aunt Marlene's place right after. Marlene answered the door like she'd been watching the window. She let us in, kept her hands busy straightening magazines that were already straight. Eric stayed quiet, which I appreciated. He just sat beside me like a wall. "Marlene," I said, "someone told me to talk to you." Marlene's eyes flicked to Eric, then back to me. "Who?" she asked. "I don't know," I said, but they knew about the lawsuit. Marlene's shoulders dropped a little, like she'd been holding them up for days. "It was Paige," she said finally, almost whispering. "Your dad's been bragging to her." She felt sick about it. Eric's mouth tightened. "Bragging about suing her?" he asked. Marlene nodded, then walked to a drawer and pulled out a folder, not a manila envelope like Dad's. A real folder, worn at the edges, with sticky notes and old labels. "Your mom asked me to keep copies," Marlene said, "in case Gary ever tried something." She slid it across the table to me. Inside was my mom's will, a copy of the deed, and a letter my mom wrote in plain handwriting. Not dramatic, just clear. She left the house to me outright, and she named Marlene as a backup person to make sure it happened if anything got messy. I turned the deed copy around and traced the names with my eyes. My name was there. My dad's wasn't, but then Marlene pointed to something else. "This is what I heard," she said, tapping the paper. "Gary took out a loan against the house last year. He used it as collateral." Eric leaned forward. "Can he do that if he's not on the deed?" he asked. Marlene shook her head. "Not legally," she said, "but he found someone who didn't look too hard, or he forged something. I don't know, I just know he's been making payments and he's behind." My stomach stayed calm, but my mind sped up. That lawsuit wasn't about $12,000. It was a pressure move. He wanted me to panic, to settle, to sign something, to hand him control so he could refinance or sell. He wanted to lock me into his mess before I married Eric. That's why he picked the engagement party. That's why he tried to poison Eric against me. Eric sat back, eyes on the folder. "We need an attorney," he said, "and you need to stop talking to your dad without one." I nodded. "Already planned," I said. That afternoon, we met with a real estate attorney Dana recommended, a sharp woman named Miss Mees Patel, who didn't waste words. She reviewed the deed, the will copy, and the lawsuit filing. She asked me simple questions, with a pen poised. "Have you ever signed an IOU to your father?" "No." "Have you ever authorized him to borrow against the property?" "No." "Do you have any shared accounts with him?" "No." She nodded like she was. Stacking blocks. Then she said, "He's trying to manufacture a debt and create leverage. Will respond to the suit, request dismissal, and I want a forensic review of those signatures." Eric slid the engagement party envelope across the desk. "He was going to give this to my son," Linda had said. But this was Dad's version. Miss Patel flipped through it and made a face like she'd smelled something spoiled. "These are crude," she said. "But crude can still hurt if people believe it." I leaned forward. "I don't want revenge," I said, and it was true in the simplest way. I didn't want to ruin him for fun. I wanted him out of my life, out of my property, out of my future. Miss Patel nodded. "Then we do this clean," she said. "Legal, documented, and public only where it has to be." 2 days later, Miss Court Patel filed a response and also submitted a request for an emergency hearing to stop any transfer or encumbrance of the property. She also advised a formal notice. Dad had 30 days to vacate the house because the owner was reclaiming it, not as a threat, as a fact. We served him at work. Eric insisted on being there, but Miss Patel said it was better if I didn't. So I sat in my car across the street from Dad's auto parts store and watched through the windshield as a process server walked in holding an envelope. 5 minutes later, Dad burst out the front door like he'd been launched. He looked around, confused, then furious, like he expected me to be hiding behind a tree with a camera. He spotted my car anyway. He always spots me. He marched over and yanked my door handle, but it was locked. He leaned down to the window, face tight. I lowered it an inch. "You think you're slick?" he hissed. "You're trying to throw me out." "I'm taking my house back," I said. "Calm, normal volume. It's not your house," he snapped. I watched his eyes move, hunting for the old button in me, the one that makes me explain myself. I didn't give it to him. Talk to my attorney, I said, and rolled the window up. He stood there in the parking lot, hands open like he couldn't believe the rules had changed. That night, he called every family member he could and told them I was having a breakdown, that Eric was controlling me, that Marlene was turning me against him. The old playbook, but this time I had documents, so Miss Patel suggested one move that felt almost too simple. He likes audiences, she said, so we give him one on your terms. We hosted a small dinner at Eric's parents' house the following Sunday. Not a party, just the people who mattered and a few relatives who'd been at the engagement dinner and witnessed the toast. Dad showed up because he couldn't not show up. He walked in smiling like he owned the room, then paused when he saw Miss Patel sitting at the table with a folder. "What's this?" Dad said, trying to laugh. "A little intervention." Linda didn't smile. Frank didn't stand to shake his hand. Eric stayed seated, arm around me. I nodded at the empty chair. "Sit," I said. Dad's smile slipped for half a second, then he sat. "Miss..." Paschal slid copies across the table, the deed with my name, the will, the lawsuit response, and a letter demanding he retract defamatory statements or face a separate claim. Dad glanced at the first page and scoffed. "This is ridiculous," he said, but his eyes kept dropping back to the signatures and seals. "You forged my signature," I said. Not loud, not emotional, just a sentence. Everyone at the table went silent, the real kind of silent where nobody even pretends to sip water. Dad looked up fast. "Prove it," he snapped. Miss Patel spoke then, calm as a metronome. "We've requested forensic analysis. Also, we have a copy of the loan document you signed using this property as collateral. The lender has agreed to provide the application and identification used. If it wasn't you, that becomes a criminal matter for whoever did it." Dad's throat bobbed. His hand went to his glass, then stopped halfway, like he remembered he needed his hands to look steady. He tried a different angle, turning to Eric. "You're really gonna let her do this to her own father?" Eric didn't raise his voice. "You did this to yourself," he said. Dad turned to me, eyes narrow. "After everything I did for you," he said. I met his stare. "You didn't do things for me," I said. "You did things to keep me small." Dana, sitting at the end of the table, let out one quiet breath like she'd been holding it for years. Dad looked around for support again, but this time people didn't look away. They looked at him. Linda's mouth was set hard. Marlene's hands were folded, shaking slightly but steadying. Frank finally spoke, low and disappointed. "Gary," he said, "that toast was cruel, and this is worse." Dad's face changed then. Not into remorse, into calculation. He realized the room wasn't his anymore. "Fine," he said, pushing the papers back like they were dirty. "You want to play grown-up? I'll move out. But don't come crying when life chews you up." I nodded once. "Okay," I said. That was it. No begging, no arguing. He stood up so fast his chair scraped. He walked out without saying goodbye. The door closed behind him and the house stayed quiet for a beat. Then Eric's mom reached across and squeezed my hand. "We believe you," she said, simply. A week later, Dad was gone from the house. Miss Patel changed the locks the same day, and I walked through those rooms like I was meeting my own life again. The fridge was bare. The walls had scuff marks where pictures used to be, but the air felt lighter. The lawsuit didn't vanish overnight, but it lost power. Once the forged documents were questioned and Dad's loan story started unraveling, his attorney suddenly wanted to discuss withdrawal. Funny how that works. Paige called me the day it happened and apologized, voice small. I didn't punish her. I just said, "Next time, speak sooner." She cried a little, and I let her. Because some people are learning to. Eric and I still got married, but not in a big showy way. We did a simple ceremony in my backyard under string lights with Dana as my maid of honor and Marlene in the front row holding my mom's letter like a quiet shield. When it came time for toasts, Eric stood up and said, "To Tessa," and his voice didn't shake, the woman who never had to be loud to be strong. People laughed softly, the good kind. I didn't look at the empty seat where my dad would have been. I didn't need to. The impact was already there. The day he tried to humiliate me in front of everyone was the day I stopped protecting his image. If you've ever been the person who stays calm while someone tries to embarrass you, just know calm doesn't mean you're losing. Sometimes it means you're collecting receipts. And sometimes the best revenge is simple. You take back what's yours, you build a life they can't reach, and you let them sit with the silence they created.